All right, well, thank you so much for coming this afternoon. We appreciate your flexibility. With cold weather, obviously, we had to make some changes with it, so I know that it wasn't on everyone's calendar for today, and I really appreciate it. Some of the information that we're going to share today is probably information that you've heard in your buildings over the last couple of weeks, but we wanted to bring everyone together again. We know how critical that one message is, and we wanted to be able to offer the opportunity for you to ask any questions at all about some of the changes that we're going to have moving into next school year. So before we get started with that, there are a few new faces that I want to introduce, just so that you're aware they'll be coming around your buildings. Katara Zachman is our wellness coordinator. Katara, if you just want to stand up. Okay. You'll see Katara around. She's going to be with us part-time and with the Y part-time, and so she'll be helping us get fit and healthy for the remaining of the school year. So you'll see her face. Marty Argenbright is our new director of student services. So you'll see Marty around. Thank you. And Kurt Moore. Kurt Moore in the back. So Kurt Moore is also joining us. He is our communications coordinator, and he'll be working with Becky, so you'll see him out and about in functions as well. So just wanted to make sure that everyone knew the new faces. Oh, and Jill. Yes, Jill Janchek. Sorry, Jill. Jill is our new district title coordinator. So you will see Jill for sure in the elementary buildings. She is really leading that Ames Web information, progress monitoring, data team. So you'll definitely see her around and about as well. Did I get everyone? Okay. So again, the reason that we wanted to bring you all here today was because we are going to be going through some changes in terms of our literacy framework in the district. I want to just a little bit of history on what we're going to do, and we're really going to speak specifically about Literacy Collaborative. Is we're hearing feedback from teachers, and we got our audit back, our curriculum audit. And so that data, combined with our third grade guarantee results data, essentially our OAA testing, really challenged us to start looking more quickly at making that shift and that change in literacy. We knew that we needed that balanced literacy approach. We'll talk more about the reasons behind it in a bit. And so we had planned on making some of those changes into the 2014-15 school year. But with working with OSU, we were able to expedite that process a bit with Literacy Collaborative. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that, and then I'm going to explain really why we felt like it was really important to go ahead and move forward this school year, okay? So the foundation really lies in Literacy Collaborative, and that's what we're going to be going to beginning next school year. Many of you have lived through Literacy Collaborative or pieces and parts of Literacy Collaborative because it was part of our district years ago. It is and it represents a balanced literacy framework, which includes a reading workshop, a writing workshop, and word and language study. It's very specific in terms of support. It's also very specific in terms of time, the time commitment for teachers in the classroom. We feel like that's really critical for our students. The first 12 weeks of school, and again, you've probably heard some of this information, we saw over 400 inter-district transfers. Obviously, inter-district transfers are only occurring at the elementary level. So we had 400 students moving in between our buildings. That's a huge number of students. And they could potentially, right now, have absolutely different instruction delivery at each one of those stops that they make. We had to fix that. And really, unless we did something district-wide, we were never going to fix that. We also had some changes in terms of that third grade guarantee that you're all very familiar with now. And the third grade guarantee really said that students needed to be at least at a 392. Now that's not even proficient, but they needed to be at a 392 to move on to fourth grade. Well, after our fall OAA results, we knew that we have about 170 kids that aren't there yet. That was a huge challenge for us, a huge opportunity, and we knew we needed to make sure that we were supporting our teachers and getting those students to where they needed to be. Literacy Collaborative is going to help us do that, okay? So again, that Literacy Collaborative framework is really providing a framework of literacy instruction for all students. And if you look at that pyramid, you really notice that idea behind the response to intervention, that RTI model. that we're going to be using that framework for all students. And then the next piece is we are going to go ahead and start that support system for that tier 2. And that's going to be done with reading recovery and leveled literacy intervention, okay? So you'll see those referred to often as RR, reading recovery, or LLI for that leveled literacy intervention, okay? And that's really for those students that are really struggling. It's one-on-one or in small groups, and it's very intense, okay? Reading recovery is specific to those first grade students, and LLI will span itself between K through 5. And we're going to train teachers in that as well. And then, of course, we have our intervention. That's that very top part. So then we move on to the next piece that's critical in the success of Literacy Collaborative, and that's the teacher piece. That's why many of you are probably here today, because we know that we have to have a very strong support system in every elementary building. And that's going to come in the form of a primary coach, an intermediate coach, and a teacher trained in reading recovery and LLI. Okay? In order to make that happen, we're going to have a primary coach and an intermediate coach. And per the requirements of Literacy Collaborative, those teachers will be teacher of record and be teaching a language arts block part of the day. Okay? The other part of the day is the coaching piece. It's very scripted. So that person we're going to have almost a shared classroom. So that coach will be teaching the language arts block half of the day. The other half of the day they'll be coaching. They'll have a partner teacher that will do the content piece, okay? So the partner teacher, that shared teacher, will do that content piece, and they'll be providing LLI instruction the rest of the time, okay? So essentially in every building, we're gonna have at least 3 people that are dedicated support, intermediate, primary coaches, and our reading recovery LLI, but then we're also going to have 2 additional teachers who will be teaching the content areas half a day and providing LLI the other half of the day. Okay? So we're talking about a huge shift. We'll talk more about those specific job descriptions in a bit. Okay. So this is a marathon, not a sprint, and it's going to take years for us to fully implement that. For example, and we'll go into further detail later, we are going to start that primary coach training the last week of January. So January 27th through the 31st will be a week committed to the primary coach training. The reason we're able to do this is because Ohio State is very eager to be working with Marion City again. So we're going to get those primary coaches trained this year so that they can begin implementation next school year, which is allowing us 40 hours of professional development by those teachers beginning next school year. Our reading recovery and LLI will also begin training this year. We're hoping to get LLI sometime May, latest June, and also committed to some trainings in August. Reading recovery will start in August so that all of those programs can also be implemented in the 2014-15 school year. Our intermediate coaches will be trained next school year, so 2014-15, and they'll begin implementing the year after. Okay? So again, we've put some things in place short term in terms of supporting the 3rd graders this year, but we know it is a bigger piece. We know that it's a K-12, pre-K-12 literacy framework that we're looking to put in place, but we have to start somewhere. So this year, and again, many of you know this as elementary teachers, but for the remainder of this school year, we'll be training our primary coaches. We're implementing Ames Web, which is that progress monitoring piece. We benchmarked all of our 3rd grade students before Christmas break. We've analyzed the data, and we'll be working with building data teams on what does that data mean and what are the instructional strategies that we need to put in place to make sure that our students are progressing. Those will be monthly meetings that we have that Jill will be leading to make sure that our students have all of the strategies that they need in place to be successful. So those are some of the things that we have in place for this school year. And again, we know it's that marathon. We won't be fully implementing until that 2015-16 school year. Okay? We have dedicated support and investments. In terms of a financial investment, this is a huge financial investment for our district. And why that's important is because oftentimes, and I know we're really feeling it this year, we say, oh great, here it comes again, another state initiative. Oh, we're going to go after that grant. Looks like we're not going to be calling it Literacy Collaborative. We're going to be calling it Everybody Reads, something new, flavor of the day. This isn't a flavor of the day. We know that in a district like ours with a very high transient population, we all have to be talking the same language. We all need to make sure that we have the same expectations, those high expectations for all of our students, so that as they move within our buildings, which is something that we're never going to change, they get that dedicated, structured literacy framework. Okay? So we are willing and ready to commit dollars to both training those coaches and the Reading Recovery LLI teachers. In terms of our time commitment, we are obviously committed to the time. We know that the coaching roles require 16 days of training within this first year. Then we also know that we're going to have to start thinking about what that's going to look like in terms of delivery for our primary teachers and for our intermediate teachers. And we're willing to dedicate that time, those waiver days and those late starts, to that professional development. So it's a huge commitment in terms of time for us as well. And in terms of the human capital, we're committed right now. All of the buildings are kind of using those title roles in very different ways. We're going to make those much more consistent. And we're going to dedicate at least 3 teachers to every building in terms of support. Again, we're going to have a primary and intermediate coach in every building and someone trained in reading recovery and LLI in every building. Okay? So it's a huge human investment as well. So in terms of the research, there's 2 pieces of research that we really used to determine that this was going to be the right fit for us. One was our own research, our own data for Marion City. And what we saw with that was, again, those numbers that we talked about before from OAA. We looked at the past numbers. We looked at those scores on the diagnostic, those RIMP scores this year. We looked at our kindergarten entrance scores. And we know that we have got to start earlier than 3rd grade. We know that. And so that's our own data that we're using to help guide the fact that we knew we needed that. We looked at that transient rate. We saw that we had over 400 kids in just the first quarter, and we know that's not changing. And so those were some of the things that we looked at in terms of why we needed to make this shift. In terms of why Literacy Collaborative, it is research-based. It's led by Gesu Pinnell and Ohio State University. There's lots of data to support the work that's been done in Literacy Collaborative. In terms of reading recovery and LLI, again, those were given. Strong research base, lots of evidence to show that once students have completed those lessons in reading recovery, they often don't fall back again, or if they do, it's a quick fix to get them back up to grade level. So we know that the research is out there for this program, which is why we chose it for our district. We also looked at our own data from when we've implemented Literacy Collaborative in the past, and we have that data. We have data from when we were fully implementing Literacy Collaborative, and we saw significant gains in our test scores when we were fully implementing Literacy Collaborative. Okay. We also know that there are other districts that are doing it, other districts that are like us. So not the Olentangis, not the Dublins, but the Delawares, Southwestern, that are like us. They have the same kind of kids, the same kind of communities, the same kind of obstacles, and they're doing this successfully, and they're seeing results. And so that's why another reason that we wanted to go to this. So in terms of time frame, there's going to be some things that are really quick and that are going to be coming at us fast. So January. We're going to post the positions tomorrow. So the positions that will be posted tomorrow are primary coach positions, intermediate coach position, a teacher that will be implementing reading recovery and LLI, and what we're referring to as a shared teacher, meaning that teacher will share the responsibilities with the coach in terms of that classroom. Okay? We are also posting 2 positions at the middle school to, again, support in that reading and writing in the content areas and building upon that literacy framework that we know is important even as they transition out of elementary school. Okay? When you see the postings, what you're not going to see is a specific building attached to them. These positions really have to be the best of the best. So we aren't going to say that we're only taking 3 people from each building that already are there doing this work now. This is a huge time commitment. As I said, the coaching is 16 days of professional development. 1 full week is in Columbus at the end of January. It's a huge commitment. There are summer weeks dedicated to it in August. Reading recovery requires a Tuesday evening meeting weekly throughout the entire school year. So we really need people that are committed to this. We also want people that are willing to commit for 4 years at a time. Because we know that between the training and then implementing and then really digging in and making this your passion, it's going to take some time. And so we want those true commitments. So we would never just assume that those teachers that are currently filling those roles would want this position at this point, which is why we're opening it district-wide. So we're going to hire the 6 best primary coaches we have, and then we'll talk about what buildings they'll be a part of. Okay? So that's something to consider. We aren't going to make any guarantees in terms of building assignment at this time. We want to hire all of the positions and then really try to create the best teams for each of those buildings. In terms of the summer, we're working right now with Ohio State to get LLI. We'd love to have it this year. We think we're going to be able to do that. But if not, they're committed to offering us some days in June and August. We know that Reading Recovery, their training will start in August, a week before school starts, 2 weeks actually before our school starts. That is a week of training. Again, all these trainings, and you know, there are lots of you in the room that have gone through Reading Recovery, and unfortunately, you'll have to go through it again because we haven't done it for a while. And they can tell you it's a very intense training. But it's incredible, the information that you get and how we can translate that for students. Okay? But there's a huge time commitment. And we want to make sure that we really have the right people that are ready and can commit to that. Okay? For next school year, what that's going to look like is we're going to start that primary literacy collaborative training, that professional development training. That primary coach will be trained this year. They'll be able to start next year. Reading Recovery will start next year. LLI will start next year. And the intermediate coach will start their training next year so that they can start providing PD 2015-16. So very fast timeline. We're posting tomorrow. They'll come down on next Tuesday. We're going to start interviewing next week. Our priority is to get those primary coaches hired because they start training in 2 weeks. So that's our primary priority at this point, is to get those folks hired. But we're hoping to make all of those changes in February so that as people decide, you know, this isn't for them, then they'll have an opportunity to start looking at that domino effect of other openings as they come up throughout the district. Okay. So I know there are lots of questions. Can I answer any of them now? And then again, let this marinate. Let us know if you have questions. Obviously, you can email at any time. I know that some folks had sent some questions earlier, so let me answer some of the ones that I got, kind of got a list. One of them asked about if the Reading Recovery and LLI is interchangeable. It's actually 2 separate trainings. So that person that would want that position would need to be trained in Reading Recovery and implement that half a day. It's actually, you have to commit to 4 30-minute sessions. And then the other half of the day, they'll be doing LLI, which is very similar to Reading Recovery in that it's very intense. It's scripted lessons, but it's smaller groups, about 3 kids can be in a group with LLI. So they would need to be trained in both of those in order to implement that. The other piece was if they go through the literacy collaborative training or Reading Recovery, do they meet that special list for 3rd grade guarantee? The answer that I got from ODE was as of right now. So as of the guidelines that ODE has in place right now, yes, you would meet the guidelines, which allows them their out that they'll change their mind later. But as of right now, yes, you would meet that. Okay. The other question that we had was some people want to come to the table with almost their packet, you know, their group. So I'm going to be the coach, and this is going to be my partner teacher, and we work really well together. Those are certainly things that we'll consider, but we can't make any guarantees, okay, in terms of that partnership. All right. Other questions that I can answer right now? Yes. it probably will look different. And, obviously we're just starting. Let me repeat the question. So the question was, can you explain how that's going to look for teachers in their classroom as they start, changing their guided reading groups and all of that? And then how does that play in with intervention? So intervention, it's really more supported actually with this model, because essentially what we're saying is we've got two lines of defense now. We're all doing this literacy collaborative framework for all kids. Then we've got this next tier, which is it's going to be built in. That's your reading recovery and LLI. And then you've got the third tier, which is truly that response to intervention model of now the students that are really the neediest are the ones who are getting the true intervention services. So it actually builds in more support for those intervention specialists in terms of the system. What that's going to look like for other teachers is we're going to provide professional development on just kind of establishing some expectations of what that would look like in your classroom. Literacy Collaborative is very specific in that they want certain amounts of time. They want 2.5 hours at the primary level for that language arts block. That's certainly something that I think is happening in pockets, but again, every building does things differently. So we'll definitely make those kind of expectations much more consistent, and we'll give you plenty of time to do that and plenty of professional development opportunities to kind of set that up. Okay, yes. Yeah, so part of the literacy, the question was if the coach is responsible for 3, 4, 5, how does it all work with the sharing of the teacher? The way the literacy framework works is they want a coach who is boots on the ground, that's in the classroom every day, trying things, making those corrections, and being able to truly model for teachers. So they want a classroom teacher, which is why they recommend and require that coach is in the classroom and teacher of record at least 2.5 hours. So that may look different in buildings. Gary? Yeah, sorry, yes. And that could be the same for the primary coach as well. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. Yes, the middle school positions. So the middle school positions really are something that we've just talked about. We're not completely sure in terms of what professional development we're going to really require that person to attend. But right now, we know that the focus really needs to be, especially at the middle school, for reading and writing in the content areas. I think as they'll be posted tomorrow, we're really looking for a content expert to spend some of their time in a math area, the other time reading and writing in the content areas, and the other person really focusing on 6th grade as those students transition from 5th to 6th. We also know that in terms of our data, that's an area that we need to work with, and as well as spending some of their time doing reading and writing in the content area. Yes, sir. You got it. Yep. So the question was, is the co-teacher then going to be responsible for math, science, social studies? And the answer is yes. The coach will be responsible for the language arts block, and then the other teacher would be the teacher of record for those other areas. So what would that co-teacher do while the coach is... Good question. So what does the co-teacher do? The co-teacher is going to be doing LLI. That way, it allows us for essentially to have 3 teachers trained in LLI in every building. Yes. Right. It's a shared classroom. Yes. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And that's how you'll see it tomorrow in the job description, is that it's a shared classroom. Yes. Yes. Okay. So the question was, is there any possibility that there'll be more than one reading recovery teacher in a building? There is. We are actually looking at the data right now to see what exactly we need to do in terms of that, but we certainly think that there are some buildings that will have at least two. And again, we'll use data to determine which buildings need to have more support. Yes. Thank you. The question was, will the reading recovery and LLI replace title? And it will in its current form. The way that we have things set up right now in terms of instructional coaches and title will be different next year. Instead of those roles, we will have a primary coach, an intermediate coach, and the reading recovery LLI. So to answer your question, yes. Is there another question? Yes, the same number. Essentially 3 support teachers in each building, minimum. Yes. Oh. Right. So as jobs post, those would be things that I would be considering throughout the rest of the school year. Yes. So that is it's a more difficult question, really, because of licensure. Licensure really dictates that departmentalizing, and we can't really make a blanket statement in terms of that, just because we certainly have folks that aren't able to do that. So I think that will actually probably look different in every building. Yeah. Okay. Well, what we'll do is they'll be posted tomorrow. The job description will be up until Tuesday. Please email with any questions that you might have. We have recorded this session, and we're going to be posting this on First Class tomorrow, or actually, once it's edited. I don't really know how all those fun things work, but once it's ready to go, we're going to post this so people that weren't able to attend tonight will be able to see. Please share any information with your colleagues that weren't here. Ask questions. We'll certainly be around to answer anything for you. Like I said, as people start expressing interest and want to apply for those jobs, we are going to start scheduling you. The way we're going to do this is we're actually going to go to the buildings. We have scheduled blocks of time for every elementary building beginning next Tuesday. And we're just going to come to you, and we're going to just have slots of teachers that we're going to be interviewing. Because again, we need to have some decisions made by January 20th so that Ohio State can conduct their interviews prior to the training. So it'll be very quick, and we'll get folks interviewed, and we'll do everything that we can, to answer any questions moving forward. Part of Literacy Collaborative is also making sure that even if you're not a coach, or you're not the reading recovery teacher, that you're committed to being part of Literacy Collaborative. And really that's that idea of, again, being part of that balanced literacy framework of that reading, writing workshop, the word study, and language study. And that's something that we feel is very important to get teacher buy-in. We have sign-in sheets, commitment sheets from Literacy Collaborative that we are going to be passing out in every building to get every signature that we can to show that we're truly committed to this. If you're ready to make that commitment and you're here now, in the back you'll see your school and you'll see that commitment sheet. If you will just sign that, that would be great. If not, your building principals will be scurrying around, I'm sure, in the next couple of days, getting those commitments and answering any questions that they can also about the Literacy Collaborative as we move forward. Okay? Anything else? Yes. We will. We will provide some professional development both in June and August to just kind of help with that prior to the coaches being able to start implementing their professional development in the buildings. So yeah, we'll definitely get some trainings together in June and August for that. All right. Thank you again so much for coming. If you have questions, let us know, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you.